Hello, miladies of inestimable value. The hardest person to psychoanalyze is the one who never asked to be understood in the first place. Let that sink in. Because today we're not talking about ordinary women. We're entering the shadow realm of the Sigma female, that elusive blend of brilliance, solitude, and emotional lockdown that both mesmerizes and terrifies people, sometimes at the same time. But here's the twist most people miss. Even Sigma females don't fully understand themselves. And the craziest part, they're perfectly fine with that. In fact, psychologists have found that emotionally self-contained individuals, those who operate outside conventional social hierarchies, often lack internal clarity about their own contradictions, but remain highly functional. Translation? She might be an emotional Rubik's Cube, but she's still getting things done like a boss. She'll ghost you with a smirk, crave deep connection while planning her escape route, and protect her peace like a dragon hoarding silence instead of gold. And if you think you've figured her out, congrats. You've just passed level 1 of an emotional labyrinth with 12 locked doors and no map. So buckle up, because we're about to expose the hidden truths Sigma females don't even admit to themselves. Not to shame them, but to unravel the quiet storm that lives behind their eyes. And maybe, just maybe, you'll finally understand why being unreadable is their favorite form of self-defense, and why they wouldn't have it any other way. Let's dive in. Number 1, they're masters of survival but terrible at celebration. They've survived things most people wouldn't talk about out loud. Disappointments that never got closure. Friendships that turned into betrayals overnight. Environments that forced them to become emotionally self-sufficient long before they were ready. Sigma females don't just get through hard times, they adapt to them like it's second nature. They know how to keep breathing when everything around them is falling apart. That's their gift. Survival isn't just something they do, it's who they are. But ask them to celebrate themselves, that's where things get complicated. You won't find them throwing a party after achieving something major. No champagne toasts, no loud victories. Instead, there's a quiet nod to themselves, a mental checklist ticked off, and then nothing. They move on as if success was just another obstacle to clear. Because for them, the world has never truly stopped to applaud. So they learned early on not to expect it, and now they barely know what to do when good things happen. The truth is, Sigma females have trained themselves so well to survive pain, they've forgotten how to sit in joy. When something great happens, they immediately start analyzing it. What's the catch? Who's watching? How long will it last? They treat happiness like it's fragile or suspicious. They don't relax into it. They interrogate it. They're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, because in their world, it usually has. It's not that they don't want to celebrate. It's that celebration feels unfamiliar, vulnerable, and strangely uncomfortable. They're more fluent in chaos than contentment. They can emotionally process loss with terrifying clarity, but ask them to revel in peace and they almost short-circuit. Even worse, when others try to celebrate them, they retreat. Compliments feel awkward. Attention feels threatening. Being the center of admiration makes them feel exposed, so they downplay everything, hide their wins, shrink their shine, not out of humility, but because they've never learned how to feel safe in success. And the wild part, they know this about themselves, and they don't lose sleep over it. Because survival has always mattered more than celebration. And if they had to choose between applause and peace, they'll choose peace, even if it comes with silence. Number 2, they're not built for normal relationships, but they keep trying. Sigma females are not wired for normal relationships, and deep down they know it, but that doesn't stop them from trying. They still date, fall in love, get attached, and even try to play by the rules of what society calls love. But every time they try to fit into the conventional mold, weekly check-ins, constant texting, clingy emotional updates, they feel like they're being smothered. Not because they don't care, but because they care differently. They don't crave possession, they crave understanding. They don't need constant presence. They need mental chemistry. They don't want someone to fix them. They want someone who sees them, chaos and all, and doesn't flinch. And that's rare, painfully rare. Most people, no matter how well-meaning, expect traditional patterns in relationships. Emotional availability on demand, predictable displays of affection, shared everything. But Sigma females, They operate on a frequency that doesn't always match those expectations. They love deeply, but from a distance. They want connection, but with breathing room. They give loyalty, but not on a leash. So they find themselves in this weird space, half in, half out. They can be completely present with someone, then suddenly disappear into their own world for days without warning. Not because they're playing games, but because they need solitude like oxygen. And in relationships, that behavior gets misunderstood as cold, distant, or unavailable. They end up breaking hearts without meaning to, or worse, settling into relationships that slowly suffocate their spirit, all in the name of being normal. They try to compromise who they are for the sake of keeping peace, and the more they try to play along, the more they feel like strangers in their own life. Eventually they burn out, they walk away, and when they do, they blame themselves for not being better at love. But here's what they don't fully grasp. They were never meant to follow anyone's blueprint. Their love is rare, intense, and unconventional, and it deserves something just as rare in return, someone who understands that normal is boring and freedom is not the opposite of love but part of it. Until they find that, they'll keep trying, breaking patterns and hearts along the way, without ever really knowing how to stop. Number 3. They crave connection, but distrust the cost. Sigma females want connection more than they'll ever admit. Not just surface-level company, but real soul-deep connection. The kind where they don't have to explain every thought, every silence, every mood shift. They crave that feeling of being known without being studied, accepted without being tamed. But the problem is connection always comes with a price, and that's what they don't trust. For them, emotional closeness has often meant giving too much and getting too little. Opening the door just enough for someone to walk in, only for that person to rearrange the furniture, question the layout, and leave a mess on their way out. So now, before they let anyone close, they run a quiet audit in their mind. What will this cost me? My peace, my freedom, my focus? They calculate risk like emotional accountants. Not because they're cold, but because they've been through enough to know that love isn't always safe. They're cautious, not because they're unwilling to feel, but because they've felt too much in the past, and it left a scar. Every time someone tries to get close, there's a silent alarm going off in the background. Is this person real? Are they consistent? Do they want me, or the version of me they've made up in their head? And if the answers don't line up, they quietly back away before things even begin. The worst part is, they blame themselves for this. They think something's wrong with them for being so guarded. But the truth is, they've just learned how to self-protect with surgical precision. They've been both the healer and the wreckage in their own story. So when someone shows interest, they don't just feel flattered. They feel suspicious. This inner conflict is what wears them down, wanting intimacy but fearing the erosion that often comes with it. Wanting closeness but fearing it'll cost them the solitude that keeps them sane. So they stay in this limbo, reaching out just enough to not feel alone, but never fully leaning in. They want the connection, deeply. But if it means breaking their own rhythm, they'd rather stay safely misunderstood than risk being emotionally bankrupt again. And that's a price they're no longer willing to pay. Number 4. They don't fully grasp how addictive their presence is until it's gone. Sigma females have a presence that sneaks up on people. At first they're quiet, self-contained, maybe even a little hard to read. But over time, something about them pulls people in. It's not loud or obvious. It's in the way they observe more than they speak, the way they stay calm in chaos, the way they make silence feel meaningful instead of awkward. They don't chase attention, but they somehow command it without trying. The thing is, they usually don't realize how powerful their presence actually is. They're not performing. They're not playing mind games. They're just being themselves, unbothered, focused, deeply aware of their own space. People around them start to get addicted to that calm intensity, to being seen but not judged, to the way a Sigma female makes you feel like she could walk away at any moment, but chooses not to. That kind of energy is rare, and when people experience it, they start craving more of it, even if they don't know why. But Sigma females don't really notice the effect they have until they leave. They don't stick around to manage reactions or ease people into their absence. They disappear when they've had enough, when the energy feels off, or when they realize they've given too much without getting anything real in return. And that's when it hits. The silence they leave behind doesn't feel neutral, it feels like a void. The kind of emptiness that makes people start questioning their own worth, wondering how someone so quiet could leave such a loud impact. The aftermath is almost always the same. People suddenly realize how much space she took up without taking anything, how her presence grounded the room, how she never needed validation but still gave it out with quiet confidence. But by the time they figure all that out, she's gone, and she's not coming back. And what's wild is that she's not being vengeful or dramatic. She's just protecting her peace. She doesn't realize how addictive she was until others start reacting like something essential has been ripped away. By then, it's too late. She's already moved on to quieter rooms and cleaner energy, and she won't even look back. Number 5. They're constantly running risk calculations in the background. Sigma females are always calculating, not in a manipulative or sneaky way, but in a quiet, constant background kind of way. While others are reacting in real time, they're scanning the entire situation like a chessboard. Who's lying? Who's genuine? Where's the weak spot? What's the emotional temperature in the room? It never stops. Even when they seem relaxed or disconnected, their mind is working overtime, analyzing the risks, the motives, the power dynamics. They've lived through enough emotional chaos to know that peace is fragile, trust is conditional, loyalty is often temporary, so they don't walk into any situation blindly. Whether it's a new friendship, a relationship, a job, or even a casual conversation, they're already assessing what could go wrong and how quickly they'd be able to walk away if they had to. It's survival logic disguised as intuition. The people around them often don't notice it. Sigma females are calm, composed, unbothered on the outside, but internally there's a whole silent system running. They've learned to spot patterns, body language shifts, tone changes, power plays that most people miss, and because of this, they rarely get blindsided. They might not say anything in the moment, but trust they've seen it, filed it, and adjusted accordingly. It's exhausting sometimes, but to them, it feels necessary. Letting their guard down completely feels reckless. They don't believe in fully switching off. They might laugh, connect, open up slightly, but a part of them is always watching from the outside just in case things shift. They've trusted the wrong people before, given too much, stayed too long, so now the risk calculations never stop. And even though it keeps them safe, it also keeps them slightly removed. They miss moments because they're too busy scanning for danger. They hold back because the odds don't feel right. They distance themselves before others get the chance to hurt them. And what makes it even more complex? They don't always realize they're doing it. It's become second nature, like breathing. It's not about fear, it's about preparation. And for Sigma females, being unprepared is the only real threat. So they stay 5 steps ahead, even if it means never fully standing still. Number 6. They can destroy what they love to protect who they are. Sigma females are fully capable of walking away from something they love if it threatens who they are. It doesn't matter how deep the connection runs or how much they've invested. The moment they feel like they're losing themselves, bit by bit, slowly, quietly, they'll choose to cut it off, even if it breaks their own heart. That's the kind of discipline they've developed. It's not coldness, it's survival. They don't get addicted to people, they get addicted to peace. So the second a relationship starts asking them to shrink, dim, or bend too far out of shape, they'll burn the whole thing down just to protect what's left of their core identity. And they'll do it without drama. No loud fights, no emotional mess, just a calm, calculated exit. This is something most people around them don't understand. How can someone so loyal, so present, so emotionally invested just disappear? How can she walk away from something beautiful? But what people don't see is the slow erosion that came before it. The subtle compromises, the quiet suffocation, the feeling of being boxed in by expectations she never agreed to. Sigma females don't leave suddenly, they leave when staying starts to feel like self-betrayal. What makes this even more brutal is that they often still care. Deeply, but they care more about not becoming someone they don't recognize. And if saving themselves means letting go of someone they once saw as everything, they'll do it. That choice will hurt. It'll linger. But to them, it's the lesser pain. They've likely stayed too long in the past, given too many chances, tried too hard to make it work. And now, they move differently. They protect themselves with quiet exits and hard boundaries. They don't ask for permission to walk away. They just do it when the math no longer makes sense, when the cost of staying becomes too high. And while others may call it harsh, the Sigma female sees it as necessary. Because at the end of the day, she'd rather lose someone she loves than lose herself in the process. That's not selfishness. That's the price of self-preservation. And she's always willing to pay it. Number 7. They're never fully at rest, even when alone. Sigma females may look calm, still, even peaceful when they're alone. But inside, they're never truly at rest. Their solitude isn't empty. It's full of motion. While others relax in silence, they're processing, planning, analyzing, replaying conversations, and thinking 3 steps ahead. Their mind is always running, quietly but constantly. It's not anxiety, it's awareness. It's being mentally awake at all times. Even when they take time off, their brain doesn't clock out. They might cancel plans, stay in, or retreat into their own space, but that's not downtime in the way people think. That's strategy. That's recovery. That's them rebalancing after too much external noise. It's the only way they can function at the level they do, by temporarily pulling back from the world, not to shut down, but to rearm. Most people mistake this behavior for peace, but for Sigma females, it's more like recalibration. Their alone time isn't about escaping life, it's about managing it. Their thoughts are sharp, fast, and endless. They replay things that didn't sit right, they question motives, they map out conversations that haven't happened yet. They observe patterns and prepare responses. It's like they're living in 2 timelines at once. The one they're in, and the one they're predicting. And here's the part they don't often admit. Sometimes, even solitude feels heavy. Sometimes being alone doesn't calm them. It just gives their mind more room to spiral. But they'd still rather be overwhelmed in silence than overstimulated by noise. Because when they're with people too long, especially those who don't understand them, they start to feel drained, watched, or boxed in. Solitude, even when it's restless, still feels like control. They carry this restlessness like armor, always thinking, always observing, always fine-tuning their next move. It's not that they don't want to rest, it's that rest feels like a risk. Because the moment they truly relax, something always goes wrong. So they've trained themselves to stay slightly on edge, alert, aware, self-contained. This constant internal motion is what makes them so sharp, so focused, so misunderstood. They're not restless because they're broken. They're restless because they've had to stay ready their whole lives. And that switch never really turns off. Number 8, they're not as cold as they seem. They're just done explaining warmth. Sigma females get called cold more often than they should. People see their calm expressions, their quiet exits, their lack of emotional theatrics, and assume there's nothing going on underneath. But the truth is, there's a whole ocean of warmth in them. Loyalty, kindness, empathy, depth. They just got tired of trying to prove it to people who never really saw it in the first place. They used to explain their silences. They used to break down their boundaries, soften their edges, overextend themselves to make others comfortable. They tried to show that just because they weren't loud or clingy didn't mean they didn't care. But over time, they realized something important. People only hear what they want to hear. And most of the time, the people demanding an explanation weren't trying to understand. They were just uncomfortable with someone who didn't behave the way they expected, so they stopped explaining. Not out of bitterness, but exhaustion. And now, when someone labels them as distant, cold, or hard to reach, they don't correct them. They just let the misunderstanding hang in the air. Because what's the point in trying to prove your warmth to someone who's already made up their mind? The truth is, Sigma females still care, probably more than they should, but they've learned to show it in ways most people don't recognize. Through actions, through protection, through presence. They'll help you solve your deepest problem before you even ask. They'll notice the shift in your tone before you admit something's wrong. They'll stay loyal in silence, defend you behind your back, and give you space without making it about themselves. That's real warmth, but it's not performative, and that's why most people miss it. They're not cold. They're just done doing emotional handstands to prove they're human. They no longer feel the need to unpack every feeling, justify every boundary, or comfort people who can't handle quiet affection. If someone needs their warmth to come with fireworks, they're not the right match. Sigma females won't yell to be understood. If you don't get their warmth the first time, they won't repeat themselves. And that's not pride, it's peace. The kind they earn through years of being misunderstood and still choosing to stay true to who they are. Number 9. They know their detachment hurts others. They just see no other way. Sigma females are fully aware that their emotional distance can hurt people. They know their silence can sting, their withdrawal can confuse, and their detachment can leave others feeling unwanted. But the truth is, they don't do it out of cruelty. They do it because they don't see another way that protects their peace. They've spent years learning how to manage life alone. They've built emotional walls not out of spite, but out of necessity. And those walls weren't built overnight. They were built brick by brick, through every betrayal, every disappointment, every moment where vulnerability was met with carelessness. So now, when people expect them to be open and emotionally available all the time, it feels like too much. Not because they don't feel, but because they feel everything, and they've learned that giving too much of themselves away always comes with a cost. They don't detach because they're heartless. They detach because they've been the one left empty too many times. And somewhere along the line, they decided they'd rather disappoint someone else than betray themselves again. It's a quiet, brutal calculation. Someone's going to feel the sting, better them than me. Of course, that kind of emotional self-defense doesn't come without consequences. Sigma females often end up pushing away people who actually care. They keep potential closeness at arm's length, not because they don't want love, but because they don't trust the terms it usually comes with. They've seen how quickly love can turn into control, how easily affection can become expectation. And so, to avoid being boxed in, they pull away, calmly, quietly, sometimes without warning. What's strange is, they don't pretend it doesn't hurt others. They know it does. They're not blind to the emotional confusion they leave behind. But in their mind, there's no better option. It's not that they don't care. It's that they care deeply, and they just refuse to get caught in emotional dynamics that require them to abandon their own balance. So, yes, their detachment may hurt people, but to them, it's a necessary sacrifice. Because if there's one thing a Sigma female refuses to do anymore, it's bleed for people who never learned how to hold her without cutting her in the process. Number 10. Their silence is sometimes punishment, not peace. When a Sigma female goes silent, it's rarely just about peace. Sometimes that silence is the sharpest message she'll ever send. It's not passive. It's not gentle. It's not even meant to de-escalate. It's a boundary dressed in quiet. A line drawn without needing to explain a single thing. And the people on the receiving end feel it immediately, like the air suddenly got colder. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't get into emotional battles. She's not going to plead for you to understand her or beg you to do better. What she'll do instead is vanish into a silence that says everything. You crossed a line, and I saw it. I just don't care to argue about it. To her, silence is not a lack of communication. It's controlled communication. It's the final word spoken without using one. And unlike others who go quiet hoping to get attention or manipulate the outcome, a Sigma female's silence isn't for show. It's real, it's earned, and it's often permanent. She's not trying to win points or play games. She's simply done. And when she's done, the switch flips in a way that's almost surgical. No warning, no dramatic exit, just silence. And that's what makes it hurt more than any fight ever could. Because it forces people to sit with the weight of what they did without being given a stage to defend it. And here's the thing. She's not doing it to punish someone on purpose. But she knows the silence will feel like punishment. It's the withdrawal of her energy, her time, her presence. And once those things are gone, people realize just how much space she actually held. That's when it hits. Not when she was explaining, not when she was trying to fix it, but when she just stopped showing up. Her silence is her way of saying, you don't get to keep access to me after showing me I'm not safe here. It's her reset button. It's how she protects her dignity without creating a scene. Because for Sigma females, silence isn't weakness. It's the final power move. One that doesn't need permission, doesn't need validation, and definitely doesn't need to be loud to be lethal. Number 11. They're often misunderstood by other Sigma females. Sigma females are often misunderstood, even by other Sigma females. You'd think they'd get each other instantly, like two rare wolves recognizing one another in the wild. But that's rarely how it plays out. What actually happens is subtle tension, unspoken competition, or emotional standoff between two people who both crave depth but refuse to give up control to get it. They both want meaningful connection, but neither one wants to be the first to drop their guard. They see through each other's silence, their calculated detachment, their emotional boundaries, and it makes them uneasy. Because deep down they recognize their own traits in the other person, and that mirror can be uncomfortable to look into. They both know what it means to love on their own terms, protect their energy like it's sacred, and detach without a second thought. And when two people carry that same emotional playbook, things can either click or clash hard. What's tricky is that both Sigma females usually assume the other one is being distant, guarded, or maybe even fake. They don't realize it's not rejection, it's just familiarity. They're so used to being the lone wolf that meeting another one feels more like territory being invaded than a real chance to bond. It's not about dislike. It's about tension that comes from recognizing strength that doesn't bend easily. Both are used to being the observer, the strategist, the one in control of the emotional temperature in the room. But when they're around each other, that balance gets thrown off. Who leads? Who follows? Who opens up first? And because neither wants to feel exposed, the connection often dies quietly before it ever gets a real chance to grow. The wild part is, if they did let their guards down, they'd probably build one of the strongest, most loyal friendships possible. But that level of vulnerability is risky for both. So instead they stay polite, distant, maybe even a little suspicious, and never realize how rare and powerful the connection could have been. Sigma females aren't cold to each other, they're just not used to seeing their reflection in someone else. And sometimes that's exactly what makes them pull away. Number 12. They attract the damaged, the desperate, and the dangerous. Sigma females don't go out looking for damaged people, but somehow the damaged, the desperate, and the dangerously unhealed always seem to find them. It's not just coincidence, it's the energy they give off, strong, calm, self-contained. That kind of presence is like a magnet for people who are emotionally lost. They see her independence and mistake it for stability they can attach themselves to. They see her silence and think it means she'll tolerate anything. They see her strength and assume she can carry their pain too. At first, it's subtle. These people show up with charm, intensity, maybe even admiration. They say all the right things, mirror her depth, pretend to understand her solitude. But over time their cracks start to show. The neediness creeps in, the manipulation surfaces, the chaos begins to circle. And by then, she's already deep in the situation, trying to figure out how she got pulled into yet another emotional storm she never signed up for. What she doesn't fully realize is that her calm makes broken people feel safe, but not always in a healthy way. Some come to heal, others come to feed. They attach to her because they think she won't leave, or because they think she'll fix them without asking anything in return. And for a while she plays along, not because she's naive, but because she hopes this time might be different. But it rarely is. She starts to notice the draining conversations, the subtle guilt trips, the way her silence is constantly poked for reaction, the way her peace becomes a playground for someone else's chaos. And then she does what she always does. She detaches. Cold, clean, quiet. She leaves without fanfare, without second chances. And the ones she leaves behind are always stunned because they thought her strength meant she'd stay through anything. What they didn't know is that her strength isn't for them. It's for her. It's what allows her to cut ties the second she senses she's becoming someone's emotional crutch. She doesn't attract broken people because she's broken. She attracts them because they sense her power, and they either want to be near it or use it. Either way, she doesn't stay long once she sees the difference. Sigma females are not mysteries to be solved. They are contradictions that make sense only to those who look deeper. They live in dualities, soft but guarded, loyal but detached, open yet unreachable. And the truth is, they don't always fully understand these contradictions themselves, but they've made peace with that. They've learned to navigate the world not by fitting into it, but by quietly bending it around their silence, strength, and self-possession. They don't chase connection, but when they give it, it runs deep. They're not afraid of being alone. In fact, solitude is their sanctuary. But that doesn't mean they don't long to be seen. It just means they've stopped trying to be understood by those who only listen with shallow ears. Their love is rare. Their loyalty, selective. Their presence, unforgettable. And their absence, even louder. Every part of them, how they detach, how they calculate risk, how they burn bridges to protect their soul, isn't about being heartless. It's about refusing to lose themselves in a world that keeps asking them to be less than they are. And if that makes them hard to reach, so be it. They'd rather be misunderstood than misused. So if you ever cross paths with a Sigma female, don't try to decode her, don't try to fix her. Just respect the storm and the stillness she holds within, because once she lets you in, you'll realize the truth. She's not hard to love. She just refuses to beg for it. If you felt this message hit home, don't just scroll away, make it count. Like the video to show your support. Comment below with your thoughts or your own Sigma experience. We read every single one. Share this with someone who needs to understand the quiet power of Sigma females. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you never miss the truth most people are too afraid to say out loud. We drop deep, real, and brutally honest content that cuts through the noise, so join the tribe. This isn't just another channel. It's where the unapologetically self-aware come to feel seen. Hit that bell icon too, because trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.